The name hit Daeshim Moon like a bullet to the chest. For a moment, he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't believe what he was hearing, and definitely couldn't believe what he was seeing even as the image continued to form in front of him and the sounds of applause rose around him. His hand gripped the podium edge, knuckles bone-white. The ballroom, glittering chandeliers, designer gowns, flash of cameras, dissolved into white noise. No, it can't be. Daeshim, Jwan's whisper cut through the static. You're trembling. He wasn't trembling, he was shattering. Please welcome our first life grant recipient family to the stage, the announcer continued. Daeshim's eyes snapped to the side entrance, and there she was. Raven Hart. The woman who'd vanished 4 years ago, the girl his father had threatened to erase, the only person who'd ever made him feel human. She stepped into the spotlight in a faded dress that cost less than his boutonniere, and time rewound with vicious speed. Those lips he'd kissed until swollen, that neck he'd traced with reverent fingers, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, framing a face carved with exhaustion, shadows under her eyes, hollows in her cheeks. The terror in her eyes when she saw him gutted him completely. Triplets, Jwan murmured with disdain. How tragic. Triplets. 3 small figures stood beside Raven, and Daeshim's heart stopped. The first boy had Raven's dark skin but the sharp moon jawline, high cheekbones, the watchful expression from Daeshim's childhood photos. The second boy, that defiant chin, that stubborn pride, was his father's mirror image. Then the little girl looked up with amber-flecked brown eyes, his grandmother's eyes, the genetic signature every moon heir carried. All 3 of them, perfect combinations of him and Raven, standing under the spotlight like an accusation. The Hart family, the announcer proclaimed, single mother of triplets, currently residing in the Songpa district. Songpa, the slums his shell company owned. The crumbling tenements where desperate families paid extortionate rent for black mold and broken pipes. While he'd climbed to power in Italian suits making million-dollar deals, Raven had been pregnant with triplets, alone, terrified, surviving in squalor he'd created. Raven walked toward the stage, children pressed close. One boy kept scanning the ballroom with sharp, suspicious eyes, standing protectively in front of his siblings. Already a guardian at 3 years old. What did I do to them? Their eyes met across crystal and silk. Raven went ashen. The entire ballroom fell away, guests, cameras, fiancé, leaving only her. Only Raven, staring at him with shock, fear, fury, and grief. The little girl smiled up at him, shy, uncertain. She had no idea she was looking at her father. Something inside Daeshim broke. He moved automatically, extending the oversized check, $10,000 less than his tuxedo cost. When their fingers brushed, Raven flinched. Up close, calluses from manual labor, exhaustion carved into her face, a scar she hadn't had before. She'd been soft when he knew her, a college student with dreams. Now she looked like she'd survived a war. A war of raising triplets in poverty. Thank you, Raven whispered, voice rough with strain. Mama, who's the pretty man? The little girl asked. No one, baby, Raven murmured, scooping her up. Just no one. No one, the words carved into his chest like a blade. Come on, Raven said, already backing away with real fear. We should go. She ran, triplets stumbling to keep up, disappearing into the crowd. Daeshim stood frozen, watching his family vanish. Jwan appeared at his side. You look so moved, darling. The cameras will love it. She was right, excellent press. His father would be pleased. But Daeshim's eyes never left the exit where Raven had fled. Triplets, 3 moon heirs living in his slums. Raven running from him like the devil himself. She was right to run. But not anymore. The man who'd let her go was dead. Daeshim Moon had just discovered he was a father. And he would burn down his entire empire to make this right. Daeshim couldn't move, couldn't speak. The applause thundered around him as Raven disappeared through the ballroom's gilded doors, but all he could see were those three small faces, branded into his retinas like a scar that would never fade. That went perfectly, Jwan purred, reclaiming his arm with possessive satisfaction. Did you see the photographers? They caught every angle. Tomorrow's headlines will be glorious. Moon airs compassionate heart. She laughed, light and musical. Your father will be so pleased. Daeshim let her guide him back to their table, his body moving on autopilot while his mind spiraled into freefall. 4 years ago, August, the night his father's enforcers cornered Raven outside her apartment. The night she'd texted him to let her go. The night he'd chosen obedience over love. 9 months later, May, when she would have given birth, alone, to triplets. The math was brutal and inescapable. The life grant program was your best idea yet, Jwan continued, sipping champagne. $10,000, such a generous amount for people like that. They'll probably waste it within a month, but at least we get the tax write-off and the publicity. She squeezed his hand. You're brilliant, darling, absolutely brilliant. People like that. The words echoed in his skull. People living in Songpa, in buildings with Moon Holdings stamped on the deed, in apartments where the rent consumed entire paychecks, where mold grew in the corners and heat was a luxury. His children, living in his slums. The boy with the attitude, Jwan mused, examining her manicured nails. Did you see how he looked at you? So hostile. These charity cases always are, no gratitude whatsoever. Probably thinks the world owes him something. That's my son, Daeshim wanted to scream. That's my defiance in him, my pride, my fire. Instead, he reached for his whiskey and drained it in one burning gulp. The little girl was sweet, though, Jwan admitted. Pretty eyes, unusual color, almost looked like yours for a moment. She laughed at the absurdity of it. Funny how genetics work sometimes. Daeshim's glass stopped halfway to the table. She doesn't see it. Jwan had looked directly at his daughter, at those unmistakable Moon family eyes, and seen nothing. Because why would she? Why would anyone suspect that the Mafia Prince's bastard children were being paraded across his own charity stage? The genius of it was sickening. Raven had hidden in plain sight, in Songpa, in his buildings, close enough to hate him, far enough to stay invisible. Until tonight. We should discuss the venue coordinator, Jwan said, pulling out her phone. She's suggesting the Grand Hyatt for the reception, but I think the Shilla would be more. Daeshim. Are you even listening? He was calculating. The Songpa records would be in Moon Holdings' database. Tenant names, apartment numbers, how long Raven had been there, how much she'd been paying, how much he'd been extracting from the mother of his children. I need to make a call, Daeshim said abruptly, standing. Now, but the second family is about to. Now. He left Jwan at the table, her protests fading as he strode toward the private corridor. His phone was already out, fingers moving with lethal precision. The text went to his head of security. Pull all tenant records for Songpa District. Cross-reference the name Raven Hart. I want her apartment number, rent history, and building condition reports on my desk in 1 hour. All of them, came the confused reply. Now. Daeshim leaned against the marble wall, closing his eyes. Somewhere in this city, Raven was holding their children. 3 Bobbies who'd been born together, survived together, fought together without him. The protective one with the Moon jawline, the defiant one with his father's chin, the little girl with his eyes. He didn't even know their names. But he would. And when he found out exactly what his empire had done to them, there would be hell to pay. The address glowed on Daeshim's phone screen like an indictment. Building 42, Apartment 3C, Songpa District. Owned by Moon Holdings. Managed by Moon Holdings. Exploited by Moon Holdings. His driver had offered to take him. Daeshim had dismissed him for the night and taken the wheel himself. speeding through Seoul's neon-soaked streets until the glittering high-rises gave way to crumbling concrete and broken streetlights. He parked 3 blocks away and walked. The building was worse than he'd imagined. Graffiti scarred the walls. The entrance door hung crooked on broken hinges. The stairwell reeked of mildew and something fouler, backed-up sewage maybe. Each step creaked under his Italian leather shoes, the sound obscene in the oppressive silence. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. Daeshim stood in the hallway, staring at the peeling paint on her door. Behind it, he could hear them, high-pitched giggles, a woman's tired voice, the thud of small feet running. His family. The tenant records had told him everything. Raven Hart, 4 years at this address. Monthly rent, 850,000 won, nearly $700 for a 1-bedroom death trap. Medical debt from the pregnancy, 15 million won. Still unpaid. The life grant check he'd handed her with cameras flashing. It would cover exactly 1 month's rent and a fraction of the hospital bills. His generosity was a joke, a cruel, obscene joke. Movement at the end of the hallway made him retreat into the shadows. Raven emerged from her apartment, a garbage bag clutched in one hand. She looked even more exhausted than she had at the gala, dressed now in worn sweatpants and a t-shirt with a bleach stain across the front. She walked past him without seeing, disappeared down the stairs. Daeshim didn't think, he moved. The door wasn't fully closed, couldn't close properly. He realized with sick horror because the frame was warped. He pushed it open silently. The apartment was the size of his walk-in closet. 1 room serving as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. 3 mattresses on the floor, not beds, mattresses, covered with mismatched blankets. A hot plate on a plastic table. A mini fridge humming loudly in the corner. Black mold blooming across the ceiling like a disease. And his children. The 2 boys were building something with wooden blocks, their small faces scrunched in concentration. The little girl sat nearby, cradling a doll with half its hair missing, singing softly to herself. "Kai, that's not how it works," one boy said. "Is too, Koa," the other shot back. Kai, Koa, their names hit him like physical blows. The girl looked up suddenly, those amber eyes, his eyes, landing directly on him. "Mama." "Mama went to throw out trash, Kehlani," Kai said without looking up. "She'll be right back." Kehlani, all 3 names carved themselves into his heart. Daeshim forced himself to look around, to catalog every horror. The window that didn't close all the way, letting in December's bitter cold. The stained carpet. The water damage spreading down the wall. The single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, the only light source for the entire apartment. This was Building 42. This was his building, his profit margin, his quarterly earnings report. His children were sleeping on the floor in a building he owned, because he charged rent so high Raven couldn't afford furniture. A cough erupted from Koa, wet, rattling, the sound of lungs fighting infection. The boy covered his mouth, wincing, then went back to his blocks like it was normal. The mold, Daeshim realized, his gaze snapping back to the ceiling. He's sick from the mold. Footsteps on the stairs, Raven returning. Daeshim backed out of the apartment, pulling the broken door closed as quietly as he could. He made it to the stairwell just as she reached the landing, pressing himself into the shadows. She didn't see him, just trudged back inside, closing the door that wouldn't close, returning to the children she was raising in squalor. Squalor he'd created. Daeshim stood in the darkness of the stairwell, his hands shaking with a rage so pure it felt like religious ecstasy. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Moon Holdings Property Management, a sleepy voice answered. "This is Building 42, Sampa District," Daeshim said, his voice cold as winter death. "I want every code violation documented by morning. I want to know why rent is being collected on an uninhabitable property, and I want the name of every manager who approved this." "Sir, it's midnight." Now, Daeshim snarled, or you're fired. He hung up and stared at the building. His success had been their misery. But that ended tonight. The eviction notice was taped to her door when Daeshim returned 3 days later. Final notice: vacate premises within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in forcible removal. His blood turned to ice. He'd sent the order to suspend all collections in Building 42 pending the inspection. Someone hadn't gotten the message, or had deliberately ignored it. He tore the notice down and knocked. Silence, then Raven's voice sharp with fear. "Who is it?" "It's me." The door cracked open 2 inches, the chain lock engaged. Her eyes, exhausted, wary, found his through the gap. "How did you find me?" she asked, then thought better of it. "Don't answer that. What do you want?" "The eviction is stopped. Your medical debt is cleared. You're not going anywhere." The door slammed shut. Daeshim stood there, stunned. After a moment he knocked again. "Raven. Go away. I'm trying to help." "I don't want your help," her voice cracked. "I don't want anything from you. You're being evicted from a building I own. Let me fix this." "That's exactly the problem." The chain rattled as she yanked it off, throwing the door open. She looked furious and terrified all at once, a woman who'd been pushed too far. "You own the building. You own the debt collectors. You own everything, Daeshim. You always did." Behind her, 3 small faces peeked around the corner. Kai's protective glare, Koa's curious stare, Kehlani's wide eyes. "Mama," Kehlani whispered. "Go back inside, baby. Everything is okay," Raven said, not taking her eyes off Daeshim. He forced himself to focus on her, not the children, not yet. "I didn't know you were here. I didn't know about them." "And that makes it better." Her laugh was bitter. "You've been bleeding me dry for 4 years without even knowing my name. At least before, you looked me in the eye when you destroyed my life." The words hit like bullets. "I was trying to protect you. By sending your father's men to threaten me. By letting me think you'd kill me if I didn't disappear." Her voice dropped to a fierce whisper. "I was pregnant, Daeshim. 8 weeks pregnant with triplets, and your family made it very clear what would happen if I didn't vanish." His world tilted. "You knew. When they came, you already knew." "Of course I knew." Tears streamed down her face now. "And I chose them. I chose to run, to hide, to stay invisible enough that your family would never look twice at me. Because people like you don't notice people like us." She wiped her face roughly. "Every apartment I could afford, every job I could get without references, I took it. I made myself invisible. And it worked, until you decided to play God again with your charity gala." Kai appeared at her side, small fists clenched. "Stop making Mama cry." Daeshim looked down at his son, at the defiant tilt of his chin, the protective fury in his stance, and saw himself at that age. The boy who'd stood between his mother and his father's rage. The boy who'd learned too young that love meant pain. "They have your fire," Raven said quietly, following his gaze. "All 3 of them. Kai protects everyone. Koa questions everything. Kehlani feels everything too deeply." Her voice broke. "They're yours, Daeshim, every stubborn, brilliant piece of them." "Then let me help." "Help how?" "By paying off my debts so I owe you. By moving us somewhere better so you can control where we live." She shook her head. "I've seen this before. You swoop in, fix everything with money, and suddenly you're making all the decisions. Well, I've been making my own decisions for 4 years. Hard ones, terrible ones, but they were mine. You're raising my children in an apartment with black mold. I'm raising our children the only way I know how to keep them safe from your world." She stepped closer, voice fierce. "You want to help? Then leave. Walk away. Let us stay invisible." "I can't do that." "Why not? You did it before." The truth of it gutted him. He had walked away, chosen the easy path, believed the lie that leaving her was protection. Koa coughed, that same wet, rattling sound from before. Raven's face tightened with worry as she turned to check on him. "How long has he been sick?" Daeshim asked. 3 weeks. The clinic gave him antibiotics, but they're not working. She wouldn't look at him. I have another appointment scheduled. The mold is making him worse. I know that. Her voice cracked with exhaustion. I know everything that's wrong with this place, but it's what I can afford and it's kept us hidden. Not to me, Daeshim said quietly. Not anymore. Raven finally met his eyes. You don't get to decide that. Then let them decide. He looked at the triplets, 3 small faces watching their mother face down the monster from the fancy gala. When they're older, when they ask why Koa's lungs are scarred, why they slept on the floor, why they went hungry, tell them it was because you wanted to stay invisible. See if they understand. It was a low blow. He knew it. But watching Koa struggle to breathe in an apartment he owned was worse. Raven's face crumpled. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Daeshim pulled an envelope from his jacket, papers he'd spent 3 days preparing. The debts are paid, completely clean funds. The eviction is canceled. And I've had building 42 condemned. It's uninhabitable. Everyone's being relocated. Relocated where? Wherever they choose, with moving assistance and first month's rent covered. He held her gaze. You're not special in this, Raven. Every tenant in this building is getting the same offer. She stared at the envelope like it might explode. I'm not asking for access to them, Daeshim continued. I'm not asking for anything, but I won't let my children breathe mold while I sleep in a penthouse. I won't do it. Raven took the envelope with shaking hands. And when your father finds out? He won't, not from me. You can't promise that. No, Daeshim admitted, but I can try. Kehlani tugged on Raven's shirt. Mama, is the nice man gonna help us? Raven closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were full of tears and something that looked like surrender. I don't trust you. I know. If you hurt them. I won't. You already did, she whispered. You just didn't know it. Daeshim had no answer for that. It was true. Raven looked at her children, at Kai's protective glare, Koa's labored breathing, Kehlani's hopeful eyes, and nodded once. Okay, she said, okay. The new apartment was in Gangnam. 3rd floor, 2 bedrooms, clean walls, working heat. Raven had chosen it specifically because it was far from Songpa, far from anything connected to Moon Holdings. She didn't know Daeshim on the building through a shell corporation, 3 layers deep. He told himself it was practical. Security was better in Gangnam. The schools were better. The air was cleaner. It had nothing to do with the fact that he could monitor the building systems remotely, ensure every repair was handled within hours, keep them safe without her knowing. It wasn't controlling, it was protecting. He almost believed it. Sir, the delivery service is asking questions, his assistant said over the phone. They want to know why they're sending premium meal kits to the same address 5 times a week with no sender information. Daeshim stood in his penthouse staring out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, his children were eating dinner, probably instant noodles or cheap rice. Raven was too proud to accept direct help, but anonymous deliveries, those were harder to refuse. Tell them it's a corporate wellness program. Random recipients, employee morale initiative. For a building we don't officially own. Figure it out. He hung up and pulled up the security feed, not of Raven's apartment. He wasn't a monster, but of the building's common areas. He'd installed the cameras himself, disguised as a maintenance upgrade, just to ensure they were safe. Just to catch a glimpse. There, the lobby camera caught them, Raven herding the triplets through the entrance, Kai carrying a grocery bag nearly as big as him, Koa holding Kehlani's hand. They looked better, healthier. Koa's cough had finally cleared after 2 weeks in the new place. Daeshim's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. His blood ran cold. He dialed immediately. The gourmet meals. Raven's voice was tight with anger. The random building upgrades that happen the day something breaks, the landlord who never raises rent. Raven. I'm not stupid, Daeshim. The meal kits have Korean fusion cuisine, your favorite. The building manager happens to fix things in our apartment first, and somehow, miraculously, my background check came back clean for the lease despite having no credit history. He said nothing. There was nothing to say. You promised you wouldn't play God. I'm keeping you safe. You're keeping us under surveillance. Her voice dropped to a harsh whisper. She was probably hiding in the bathroom so the kids wouldn't hear. How long before keeping us safe becomes making decisions for us? Before you decide where Kai goes to school or what Dr. Koa sees or... I would never. You're doing it right now, controlling our lives without asking, exactly like before. Daeshim gripped the phone. Your old building was condemned. 12 families have better housing now because I actually looked at what my company was doing. Is that playing God? When you use it as an excuse to insert yourself into our lives, yes. I just want to help. Then ask me first. She sounded exhausted. I'm not one of your business deals, Daeshim. You can't just optimize us. Through the phone, he heard Kehlani calling for her. Mama, the food box is here again. Raven was quiet for a long moment. Stop sending meals. Stop monitoring the building. If you want to be part of their lives, you do it honestly, not as some secret benefactor pulling strings. What if something happens? What if? Then I'll handle it like I've been handling it. Her voice softened slightly. I know you're trying, but your version of helping feels like being swallowed alive. The line went dead. Daeshim stood in his empty penthouse, 3,000 square feet of marble and glass, and thought about Raven's new apartment. 900 square feet, 2 bedrooms for 4 people. It was a palace compared to Songpa, but tiny compared to what he could give them. What he wanted to give them. His phone buzzed again, a photo this time. 3 children sitting at a small table, the notorious meal kit spread before them. Kai was making Koa laugh. Kehlani had food on her face. They looked happy. Below the photo, they drew you pictures today. Kehlani insisted the pretty man from the gala needed art. I told her you were busy. Was I right? Daeshim stared at the message, at his daughter's smile, at the family having dinner without him. No, he typed back, you were. Then stop hiding behind anonymous deliveries and come meet your children properly. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., we'll order pizza like normal people. His hands shook as he typed, I'll be there. Another photo came through, this one just of Raven, exhausted but smiling slightly. And Daeshim, the meals were good, thank you, but next time just ask. He saved the photo, stared at it for longer than he should have. Tomorrow he'd meet his children, not as the man from the gala, not as a secret protector. As their father. The thought terrified him more than any syndicate war ever had. His assistant called back, Sir, about the meal service. Cancel it, Daeshim said. All of it. All of it. He looked at the photo of his children one more time. I'm done hiding. He just hoped he was ready for what came next. Daeshim arrived at 5:45 p.m. with pizza and a knot of terror in his chest. He never made it to the door. Jwan stood in the hallway, designer heels clicking against cheap linoleum, her smile razor-sharp. Darling, what an interesting place to spend your evening. Every instinct screamed danger. How did you find me? Please, you've been distracted for weeks. Canceled dinners, ignored calls, disappearing at odd hours. She examined her manicured nails. I had you followed. Imagine my surprise when my fiancé's secret location turned out to be a mediocre apartment building in Gangnam. Jwan, the charity girl, her eyes glittered with malice. The one you couldn't stop staring at during the gala. I thought you just felt sorry for her. She laughed, cold and bright. But this is so much better. Daeshim set the pizza down carefully. Go home. Those children, the triplets. Jwan tilted her head. They have your eyes, you know. I didn't see it at first, but now, she stepped closer. How long have you known? That's none of your concern. None of my, her voice rose before she caught herself, glancing at Raven's door. You're about to marry me, Daeshim. You're about to merge our families, our empires. And you have 3 bastard children hidden away like some sordid secret. They're not a secret anymore. Oh, but they should be. Jaiwan's smile turned vicious. Does your father know, the syndicate elders, that the Moon heir has been playing house with some broke nobody and her mixed race? Daeshim had her against the wall before he could think, hand around her throat. Not squeezing, just holding. Finish that sentence and engagement or not, you'll regret it. Jaiwan's eyes widened with fear, yes, but also excitement. She'd finally cracked his perfect mask. There he is, the real you. He released her, stepping back. Leave now. Or what? You'll tell our families the wedding is off. She straightened her jacket. Please do. I'd love to explain why. I'm sure your father will be thrilled to learn his heir has been keeping this particular secret. The threat hung between them like poison. What do you want? Daeshim asked quietly. For you to stop this ridiculous charade. Jwan gestured at Raven's door. Whatever you think this is, guilt, nostalgia, midlife crisis, get over it. Marry me, merge our families, and keep your charity case and her children as far from our world as possible. No. Then I'll do it for you. She pulled out her phone. A concerned citizen's report to Child Protective Services, anonymous of course, about a single mother living beyond her means in a suspiciously nice apartment, possibly through illegal activity, with a suspected organized crime connection visiting regularly, very concerning for the children's safety. Daeshim's blood turned to ice. You wouldn't. Watch me. Her finger hovered over the screen. Those children will be in state custody by tomorrow morning. Raven will be investigated for fraud, prostitution, whatever makes the charges stick. And you'll have a choice. Save them by exposing yourself and destroying both our family's alliance, or let it play out and learn to live with yourself. Jwan. Or, she lowered the phone. You come home with me right now. Announce our wedding date at this weekend's syndicate gathering, and never contact that woman or those children again. Walk away, Daeshim, like you should have done 4 years ago. Behind them a door opened. Kehlani's voice rang out bright and happy. Mama, the pretty man is here. Both Daeshim and Jwan turned. Kehlani stood in Raven's doorway, grinning, unaware of the viper in the hallway. Raven appeared behind her, one hand on her daughter's shoulder, her smile fading as she registered Jaiwan's presence. Oh, Jwan cooed, her voice saccharine. How precious. Hello, sweetheart. Kehlani shrank back against her mother. Raven's eyes met Daeshim, and he saw her understand immediately. This was his fiancée. This was danger. Kehlani inside, Raven said quietly. But Mama. Now. Kehlani retreated. Raven didn't move, her body blocking the doorway like a shield. Jwan studied her with cruel amusement. You must be Raven. I've heard so much about you. Well, seen you anyway, at the charity gala, such a touching moment. Daeshim, Raven said, ignoring Jwan completely. What's going on? Nothing, he said. Jwan was just leaving. Was I? Jaiwan's smile widened. I was actually hopping to chat with Ms. Hart, woman to woman, about the importance of knowing one's place. Get out, Raven said flatly. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of my hallway, away from my door and away from my children. Raven's voice was steel. Whatever game you're playing with him, leave us out of it. Jwan laughed. Oh, you have no idea what game this is, but you will. She turned to Daeshim. Midnight, that's when I make the call, unless you come home and end this. She walked away, heels clicking, phone in hand like a weapon. Daeshim stood frozen, calculating scenarios, each one ending in disaster. What did she mean? Raven asked. What call? He couldn't answer, couldn't move. Daeshim, what call? Child Protective Services, he said finally. She's going to report you, accuse you of illegal activity, having dangerous connections. He met her eyes. Me. She's going to use me as the weapon to take them away from you. Raven's face went white. No, no, she can't. She can and she will. His mind raced. Unless I walk away in this, marry her and disappear from your lives. Then do it. The words hit him like a physical blow. What? If you walking away keeps my children safe, then do it. Tears streamed down Raven's face. I told you your world would destroy us. And here we are, not even one dinner in, and she's already threatening to take my bobbies. Inside the apartment, Kai called out, Mama, is everything okay? Raven wiped her eyes roughly. I'm fine, baby. This isn't over, Daeshim said. Yes, it is. Raven's voice broke. It has to be, because I won't gamble with their lives, Daeshim, not even for you. She closed the door. Daeshim stood in the empty hallway, the pizza still on the floor, his children's laughter muffled behind a door he couldn't open. Jwan had given him until midnight. 6 hours to choose between his crown and his family. 6 hours to find another way. He pulled out his phone and dialed his head of security. I need everything you have on Kang Jwan, every secret, every weakness, every piece of leverage we can find. Sorry. Everything, and I need it in 4 hours. If Jwan wanted to play with his family's lives, she was about to learn that the Moon syndicate heir wasn't just a puppet in a suit. He was his father's son. And nobody threatened his children. The social worker arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Daeshim had spent the night dismantling Jwan's threat piece by piece. The anonymous report, traced and flagged as malicious, the investigating officer, reassigned, the case file, buried so deep it would never see daylight. But he couldn't stop the visit entirely, not without raising more suspicion. So he did the one thing that would legitimize everything. He showed up as the father. Mr. Moon, the social worker said, her surprise evident as she found him sitting in Raven's living room at 8 a.m. I wasn't aware you'd be here. Of course I'm here. These are my children. He kept his voice calm, authoritative. I assume you're here about the anonymous report. She hesitated, glancing at her tablet. Yes, there were concerns about the living situation and certain associations. The association is me. Daeshim gestured to the apartment. Ms. Hart is the mother of my children. We're not married, but I'm very much involved in their lives. Is that a problem? Raven sat rigid beside him, Kehlani on her lap. The boys flanked them like tiny guards. I know that's not a problem. The social worker's tone shifted, wary now, recognizing power when she saw it. But the report suggested potential criminal connections. I run Moon Holdings, among other legitimate enterprises. My family's reputation may be complicated, but my children's welfare is. He pulled out a folder, prepared at 3 a.m. Medical records showing regular checkups, enrollment papers for preschool starting next month, financial statements proving Ms. Hart and the children are well supported. The social worker flipped through the documents, her frown deepening. This all seems in order. Because it is, Daeshim leaned forward. Someone filed a malicious report to harass Ms. Hart. I'd like to know who. That information is confidential. Then let me be clear. If anyone uses Child Protective Services as a weapon against my family again, I will pursue legal action for harassment and defamation. Are we understood? The social worker stood abruptly. I'll note that the family situation is stable. The case will be closed. She left quickly, practically fleeing. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the apartment. Holy shit, Raven whispered. Did that actually work? For now, Daeshim stood, packing. But Jwan won't stop. She'll find another angle, another threat. and next time I might not be able to intercept it. So what do we do? He'd been dreading this part. You move, all of you, somewhere I can actually protect you. We just moved. Not another apartment, my estate. He held up a hand before she could explode. The guest house. Separate entrance, private space, full security. You'll have your own life, but the syndicate can't touch you there. Are you insane? Raven stood, Kehlani sliding off her lap. Move on to a mafia compound with my children. It's the safest place in Seoul. Gates, guards, surveillance. Guards with guns, you mean. Surveillance cameras everywhere. Jwan strutting around. Jwan won't be there. The words came out flat. The engagement is over. Raven's eyes widened. What? I ended it last night. She threatened my children. He met her gaze. That was unforgivable. Daeshim, your family. We'll handle it or they won't. He looked at Kai and Koa, watching silently from the couch, then at Kehlani, who'd moved closer to him with that fearless curiosity she always had. I'm done choosing between them and you. I choose you, all of you. You don't get to just. Raven pressed her hands to her face. God, this is exactly what I was afraid of. You making huge decisions that affect all of us. Mama, Kai's voice cut through, is someone trying to take us away? The question stopped everything. Raven knelt down, pulling him close. No, baby, no one's taking you anywhere. But that lady said. The lady made a mistake. Everything's fine. Because the pretty man fixed it, Koa asked. Daeshim's throat tightened. The pretty man still not father, still not dad. Just the stranger who kept appearing in their lives. Kehlani walked over to him, tilting her head up to study his face with those impossible amber eyes. Are you gonna protect us? Yes, he said, his voice rough. Like a daddy. The word punched through his chest. Raven sucked in a sharp breath behind him. Yes, Daeshim repeated, kneeling to be at her eye level. Like a daddy. Okay, Kehlani smiled, simple and trusting in the way only small children could be. Then she wrapped her arms around his neck in a clumsy hug. Daeshim froze. His daughter was hugging him. He could feel her small heartbeat against his chest, smell the strawberry shampoo in her hair. His hands came up slowly, carefully, to hold her like she was made of glass. Kehlani, sweetie, Raven said softly, come here. But I'm hugging Daddy, Kehlani said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Daddy. The word destroyed him and rebuilt him simultaneously. Kai and Koa watched with identical expressions of suspicion and longing. They wanted to believe, wanted to trust, but they'd learned early that the world was cruel. Daeshim looked at Raven over Kehlani's head. Please, let me keep you safe, all of you. She closed her eyes. If we do this, if we move there, we set boundaries. Real ones. I'm not your possession. They're not your heirs. We're just people you care about. You're everything, he corrected quietly. Boundaries, Daeshim. Whatever you need. Raven looked at her sons. Guys, what do you think? Kai crossed his arms. Will there be other kids? No, Daeshim said. Just you three and gardens and space to run. Will the mean lady come back? Koa asked. Never, I promise. The boys looked at each other in that silent twin communication, then nodded. Okay, Kai said, but if you're bad to Mama, we'll fight you. Daeshim smiled despite everything. Deal.